everybody, welcome back to another episode of Lunch and Learn with Miss Maureen. This week we are working on our napping animals. I showed you earlier how to draw pig faces, but you could do any animal. I showed you how to draw the overlapping pillows. I showed you how to draw the quilt or the blanket and a couple different ways to make patterns. So if you did yours in pencil, you want to go over all of your lines with the Sharpie marker. And then if there's any pencil showing, you just want to kind of go in and erase before you start to add the color. So I promised you that I'd show you an easy way to color things in when you have a lot of patterns going on. So this is called Crayon Resist. It just uses regular crayons and a kid's set of watercolor paints. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to color in some things like these circles. And I'm going to color in every other stripe because I want to make a pattern. I'm pressing kind of hard. The idea between a watercolor resist is that I can come back in with paint. I'm going to use a dark blue in between and just paint over a whole area. This area has a lot of detail and it would be very hard with a paintbrush to get in there and try to paint all those things in. If you have magic markers, those would be fun to do too instead of watercolor, and that would work just fine. So I'm just going to repeat the same blue here, and then I'm going to show you how to paint this in. So I have some crayon, but look, I left a lot of the white space. I'm going to take my paintbrush, I'm going to pick a color, let's pick a color that shows up, and I'm just going to paint right over, and that blue still shows up because I pressed hard. Normally I would let this dry a little bit, but I don't have a whole lot of time to let it dry while you're watching. So I'm just going to paint right over it. Again, right over. Do you see how the paint, it beat it up? Woo, there goes my crayon. It beat it up and kind of resisted it, or it didn't stick to where the crayon is. So that's why I can paint right over it. I don't have to worry about trying to be careful in those details. That works especially well for this vine. If I take my green crayon and I color in all of my leaves, and again, you want to use a nice amount of pressure for this because that's what makes the resist part work, because the wax buildup is so heavy that the paint just can't get there. And even though I drew these lines in black, I'm just going to kind of go over them in green a little bit because I think it would look nice. So there are my vines, and let me pick a color that will show up nice against that. Let's try this purple. I'm going to paint right over top. And you see how my vines still show up? So that is the Crayon Resist if you want to try it. Most of us have crayons at home. If you don't have watercolor paint, remember that you can use food coloring, or you can use marker. If you take Crayola water-based markers and scribble them on either styrofoam or on a plastic lid like this, see how I just scribbled some on the lid? I can just take water and I can use this to kind of have a paint palette. You see how easy that is? Now I have paint. So sometimes we have to figure out creative ways to use our art supplies, especially when we can't get out and buy a lot of supplies. I'm just going to paint one of my pig's faces in. I'm going to paint right over those nostrils because I'm going to come back later and I'm going to fill them in with magic marker. So whenever I want paint to be lighter, I just add a little bit more water. So I made my snout a little bit darker so that it showed up, and then I'm going to make my ears a little bit darker. So I have a light and a dark paint so that I can see the difference between the parts of my pig. There you go. So have fun coloring this in, have fun painting, have a great weekend, and I hope to see you back for another Lunch and Learn with Miss Maureen next week. Take care, everybody.